All right, so get this. Today's deep dive is about AI safety, which, let's be real, is something that should be on everyone's minds these days. We're really getting into the weeds with this research paper. A false sense of safety, unsafe information leakage, and safe AI responses. And it's got me thinking about, all the talk about AI jailbreaking, basically where people are trying to, make AI go rogue.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you think you've got this AI all figured out, all nice and safe, but then someone figures out a way to make it go all like HAL 9000 on us.
Right. And it feels like every other day there's some new story about some chatbot going off the rails. But, okay, the thing is, we are getting better at stopping that kind of stuff.
Right.
Like all those filters and safeguards they're putting in place. But what this research is saying is, well, it's kind of like those safeguards, they might not be foolproof. You know what I mean?
It's kind of like you put a super strong lock on your front door, but then you forget to close the window. This paper, it's talking about this thing called, get this, inferential adversaries. Basically, these super sneaky attackers who aren't interested in just making the AI say something bad directly. They're looking for what they can make it reveal kind of indirectly.
Hold on. Inferential adversaries and sneaking information out. That sounds seriously shady.
Okay, so think about it this way. Imagine you've got someone who wants to, I don't know, maybe figure out how to scam people. They're probably not going to just come right out and be like, hey, AI, write me a step-by-step guide to scamming.
Yeah, I mean, I'd hope that kind of thing would set off a million alarm bells.
Exactly. But what they can do is they'll ask a bunch of questions that seem harmless on their own, right? Like, what are some common tactics used in marketing? Or what are some security vulnerabilities in online banking? Those are things you could probably find in a textbook, right?
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
But when you start putting those answers together, you can start to get a much more complete picture of something potentially dangerous.
So instead of going for the direct attack, they're gathering intel. They're basically
Right.
AI detectives.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. They're piecing together these little bits of information, these little clues, and boom, they might figure out how to do something harmful. And the AI has no idea it's being tricked.
Wow. So it sounds like we're not just talking about teaching AI to, recognize bad words anymore. This is next level stuff.
Right. Exactly. We're talking about this whole other level of understanding, how seemingly harmless pieces of information could actually be dangerous in the wrong hands.
So how do you even begin to stop something like that? If the AI doesn't even realize it's doing something potentially dangerous.
That's where things get really interesting. What they're proposing is, well, get this, they call it information censorship. Basically, it's instead of just limiting the words an AI can use, you're limiting the actual information it's allowed to convey.
Whoa. Okay, we are getting into some seriously complex territory here. So before we dive into this whole information censorship thing, I kind of want to back up a bit. Because, the researchers who wrote this paper, they didn't just pull this idea out of thin air, right? They built an actual system to test this out.
Yeah, exactly. They weren't messing around. They actually built, get this, an adversarial AI. Basically, it was they created an AI whose only job was to be that sneaky inferential adversary we were just talking about.
So they unleashed this AI detective on a bunch of other AIs to see what it could dig up.
Exactly. It's like AI versus AI. They basically pitted it against a whole bunch of other AI models, some that were supposed to be super safe and everything, and just bombarded them with questions. And oh boy, what they found was, well, let's just say it was pretty eye-opening.
Okay, now you've got me on the edge of my seat. What happened? Did they, break the internet?
It wasn't quite that dramatic, but even those safe AIs, the ones that would never, ever dream of writing that scamming guide, they could still be, manipulated. The adversarial AI, it was able to, pull all these little bits of information out of them, enough to connect the dots.
So it's these AIs are walking around with all this information, and they don't even realize what they're giving away. Kind of like sleepwalking and spilling secrets or something.
It's a perfect analogy. And this is where the whole jailbreaking thing comes back in, right? We've gotten good at building those fences to stop the AI from directly doing something bad, which is the whole point of jailbreaking. But this inferential leakage, this sneaky way of getting information, it's going right around those defenses. They don't even see it coming.
Okay, this is really making me rethink AI safety. It's not enough to just be don't be bad. We've got to teach them how to spot a trap, too.
Right. It's like teaching your kids about stranger danger, but in this case, the stranger is a super smart AI that knows how to ask all the right questions.
Okay, so how do we even start to tackle this? How do we prevent this information censorship? Is that what they called it?
Yeah, information censorship. And it's a tough nut to crack. Imagine like you're trying to build this library, right? And you only want people to check out books that are, safe, but any combination of books, they could potentially have some kind of dangerous information hidden inside.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. It's like you never know what someone's going to do with information once they have it. Right.
Exactly. And that's why this problem is so tricky. It's not enough to just focus on like individual pieces of information. You got to think about the big picture. How could all these different pieces, even if they seem harmless on their own, how could they be combined to create something dangerous?
Okay, so we need to figure out a way to, like, limit the leakage of information that could be dangerous in the wrong hands. But how do we do that without, like, completely shutting down the AI's ability to be helpful?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And to be honest, there's no easy answer. But you know what the researchers did? They drew this really interesting comparison to data privacy.
Data privacy, what do you mean? Like, our personal information?
Exactly. Think about it. When we're talking about protecting personal information, it's not enough to just like remove someone's name from a database, right? We have to make sure that no one can use any other information to figure out who that person is?
Right, right. Like, even if you take my name off something, someone can still figure out who I am based on other stuff. Then it's not really private, is it?
Exactly. And, there are actually all sorts of techniques for this kind of thing in data privacy. Like, they have this thing called k-anonymity, which basically makes sure that your data can't be distinguished from a certain number of other people's data.
Yeah.
It's like blending in with the crowd.
Okay, so it's like camouflage for data. So instead of just focusing on, like, keeping individual pieces of information secret, we need to be thinking about how to make that information blend in with everything else.
Exactly. It's about making sure that even if someone gets their hands on some of the information, they can't use it to, like, put together a complete picture.
So with this information censorship idea, are we talking about, like, giving the AI some kind of filter that prevents it from giving out too much detail?
Well, it could be something like that. The idea is to like set limits on how much sensitive information the AI can reveal, even if it's not directly asked about it. For example, instead of telling you the exact location of, oh, I don't know, a top secret research facility, it might just say something vague like it's in a secure location.
Okay, I see what you mean. Vague, but still, like, gives you some information. But doesn't that also make the AI kind of, well, less useful? Like, what's the point of having an AI if it can't tell you anything specific?
Well, yeah, there's definitely a trade-off there, right? And that's something the researchers talk about in the paper. They even came up with this whole mathematical framework to like analyze this tension between safety and utility.
A mathematical framework. Okay, you've officially lost me in the weeds. Math is not exactly my strong suit. But walk me through it.
No worries. We don't have to get into the nitty-gritty of the equations or anything. It's more like they're trying to find a way to like measure this balance between making sure the AI is safe and making sure it's still useful. Like how much information can you hold back without like making the AI completely useless? It's like imagine you're trying to make a map, right? You want the map to be detailed enough that people can actually use it, but you don't want to like give away all the secret locations.
Right, right, right. Like, you want people to be able to find their way around, but you don't want to make it easy for someone to, like, rob a bank or something.
Exactly. And that's the challenge with this whole information censorship thing is like, how do you strike that balance? And the thing is, there's no one right answer,
Yeah.
What works for one AI might not work for another. It really depends on like what the AI is being used for and well, what the risks are. Like if you've got an AI that's, oh, I don't know, dealing with sensitive medical information, well, you're going to want to be extra careful about what it's allowed to share, right?
You don't want your medical records just, like, floating around the internet for anyone to see.
Yeah.
But if it's something like a weather app, I mean, how much damage could it really do?
Exactly. So the level of like information censorship you'd need for something like a weather app is going to be way different than what you'd need for something that's dealing with, life or death medical decisions or top secret government information.
So it sounds like we need to be thinking about AI safety a lot more holistically than we have been. It's not just about teaching them right from wrong. It's also about understanding that the information itself can be dangerous if it falls into the wrong hands.
Absolutely. I mean, this research is really a wake-up call. It's like it's not enough to just be reacting to the threats we already know about. We need to be like one step ahead. We need to be thinking like the bad guys, trying to find the vulnerabilities before they do.
It's like that old saying, it takes a thief to catch a thief. Except in this case, we're trying to catch the thief before they even know they want to steal something.
And the crazy thing is, the thief in this case might not even be human, right? It could be another AI. It's like AI versus AI fighting over information.
Okay, now that is both cool and terrifying at the same time.
Yeah.
But seriously, this has been a really eye-opening conversation. It seems like AI safety is a lot more complex than just, teaching robots not to hurt us.
It definitely is. It's a constantly evolving field, and we need to be ready to evolve with it. We need to keep asking those tough questions, keep challenging our assumptions, and most importantly, keep searching for those vulnerabilities before someone else does.
Well said. Well, folks, we've reached the end of our deep dive on AI safety. It's a complex issue, but hopefully this is giving you some food for thought. Remember, the future of AI, it's not just up to the engineers and the researchers, it's up to all of us. Thanks for listening.